I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Bruce, thank you.
I'll second.
Second from Sammy, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Public comments. Thanks for being here. You'll also have another opportunity at the end of the meeting if you'd like. Okay. Moving on to new business. Item A, revitalization and placemaking, which is the RAP grant budget commitment. We've been working on this for a while, and we are looking for a motion to increase the engineering fees budget line item to $595,000, reflecting a $495,000 commitment for the RAP grant match funds. Is there any questions about this project?
So I would actually like to request, in talking with Bill, it makes more sense to create a whole new line item for the project itself, because the budget amendment isn't for additional engineering costs, it's for the actual material cost of the project, of actually executing the project. So it might just be better to create a new line item in the end, but we still need a motion for a budget amendment in the amount of $495,000. And just some quick kind of points on this is within our budget, so we need to keep $76,000 in our budget for our financial policies to keep 20% of our annual expenses in our budget. In this current budget year, we would surpass that, or we would kind of dip below that through this amendment, but we're not actually expending the funds until next fiscal year when there's more revenue. So this is kind of just to show the state that we have the funds, we're committed to using them if we were awarded. And again, this really only actually gets expended if we get awarded the funds. So, and we would know that by March.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Were there any other projects that we were talking about at all that would require any of this funding? Or is it going to interrupt it or delay it any longer?
With me and Nicole, we're committed with the West Shore Plaza on the Riverwalk. So this amount takes into account the $240,000 that we need to set aside for that project. Currently coming down the pipe, we haven't discussed anything that's going to need this large general fund. Because all of our regular programming, facade grant, all that relies on our annual revenue.
And this is if we receive the grant.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it would have been money that we'll have to spend anyway when we go forward with this project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I guess for Bill, have you heard anything else on how competitive this is going to be?
I think we're in a good position with this one, but I think last I heard, there are only a couple in the north area that were looking to apply. So City Council committed a matching fund for this. So one of the things on the application is showing that actual commitment of funds to get more points. So to maximize the amount of points, you show an actual dedication of the funds. And that's what City Council did. So this is kind of the next step is for the DDA to commit that as well.
We met, and by we, I mean Bill, I, and Lucas met with Hannah Yurt from MEDC, and she's a community manager for MEDC and is reviewing these grants for other regions. And talking through our application with her, she thinks it's a very competitive project, and tomorrow we're meeting with her again to kind of go over our application, get some pointers from her if she sees any kind of voids in our application. But she believes it's a very competitive project and was really receptive to it. So it was really encouraging to see.
I'm not against it. I just wanted to ask a few questions.
I think we're gonna win.
So I just thought it was
money ready.
There's somebody in Lansing that's already on our side.
I thought it was interesting that they want to see the funds committed before we get them, but if we don't receive the grant, do we just do a transfer back, a budgetary amendment at that point as well?
Bill, I guess what would be the best
It's
process?
just a budget amendment. If you don't spend them, it lapses at the end of the fiscal year and you
Okay.
just have your new thing. It doesn't impact.
But from like an auditing standpoint, it doesn't matter if we remove, like if we amend it back, okay?
You can always amend the budget.
Yeah.
So the ask is for a new budget line item for $495,000. I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we create a new line item for $495,000 for this project.
I'll second.
A motion from Ben, second from Sammy. Is that clear enough? Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Brownfield TIF for Little River Holdings for the Gateway Project. Project that's been long in the process. T is here to present. But the way that I understand the process is that the Little River Holdings has to go to the city's brownfield development and make the request, and then the request comes to the DDA from the brownfield. And the ask is that we give up 100% of our TIF capture for that area for the project for a period of 20 years. Does that sound correct?
So if 20 years is an estimate.
Okay.
It could be longer than that. It depends on taxable value. It depends on the final numbers for costs. It depends on the growth rate over that time period. We use very conservative estimates. If the growth is higher or lower, it could change those number of years.
Okay.
Can I ask a question here?
Sure, please.
What's a worst case scenario? Like
Well,
in length?
We normally write the brownfield plan for 30 years. That's fairly typical, just to make sure that all eligible costs can be reimbursed, but that's the conservative thing. And we'll talk through that in this presentation.
We're allowed by the Brownfield Act to capture up to 30 years. And normally we write the plans with 30 years, but then we look at how long it will take to reimburse eligible expenses. We can talk about it.
You got 5 minutes.
You've been telling me this for 2 years.
Because I know you don't listen, you don't care.
Actually,
Thanks for being here.
both Ed and I will talk about it. I want to start, and then Ed is going to finish talking about numbers because
All right,
he's the good.
I'll take the
numbers
over.
I budgeted 2 hours for this meeting.
So this is a view of the project as we expect it's going to look. I do not expect any changes from this. Again, I need to remind everybody that this is a project that the DDA conceived many, many years ago, back 7, 8 years ago. That's when the DDA received a grant from an assistance from MEDC for MSU to do the original vision for the entrance to the downtown. And so this project has evolved since then. Again, quick summary. The project is going to be done in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be the south side of River Street and will be made up of the 8 townhouses that would be sold. There will be condos. 47 apartments. Those will be studios, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. At this point, we're looking at market rate based on the housing study we did 2 years ago with the major employers in the area. We were trying to figure out what their needs were for housing for their employees, the new employees especially that they're trying to bring into town. We're going to have 2 retail spaces. A small one would be down here in this corner of River and Division. And then the larger one would be on the east side, would be like over here, on the first floor of the east building. At this point is a white box. According to the PUD that we have in place, can be retail or offices. or a combination. Little River Holdings will will have offices on the 4th floor of the east building. The parking structure right here will be 210 spaces with entrances from River Street for the 1st floor and from Division for the 2nd and 3rd floors. Everything in this complex will, except for the townhouses, will be owned and operated by Little River Holdings. One of the reasons for proceeding with the South Complex first is that in order to operate the condo hotel and the conference center, parking needs to be available within 2 blocks from the building. So on the north side then will be the condo hotel, 5 stories. That's why we had to go through the PUD process. We'll have at this point 97 condo units. There will be at least 50% will be owned by Little River Holdings, and over a number of years, some of the condos or units will be sold to private owners. There will be a hotel operation on the 1st floor for the entire building. There will be a restaurant on the 1st floor, a bar, a rooftop bar on the upper level facing Manistee River Channel. And there will be a small bar at the lower level by the river walk. On the 1st floor, right here, will be the heritage and historic, native heritage and historic center. Then on the north end of the 1st floor of the building will be the conference center, 150 attendees. Again, this is driven by the number of parking spaces we have to provide or have to be available in the area. And then on the lower level, there will be a spa and some other amenities. The pool now has been moved up on the 5th floor. Again, the entire operation, except of course for any privately owned condos, will be owned and operated by Little River Holdings. As I mentioned earlier, the project that was conceived quite a few years ago, and the goals have always been to increase activity, economic activity in the downtown, and bring people to live year-round in the downtown. People that would support, the local businesses, the restaurants, the shops, the casino, the grocery stores. We are also, one of the goals was to bring additional hotel capacity to the area, both because it's needed here, as well as because we're looking at supplementing the hotel at the casino. Quite often they run, quite a bit of the time, they run with, they cannot support the demand. We're looking at providing parking in the downtown that will be available to anybody, the hotel guests, the apartment residents, the public, anybody who wants to pay for it. We do have to have parking for the hotel and for the conference center. However, they're not exclusive. The parking is not exclusive to those uses. The hotel, for example, will be leasing space in the parking structure, the same as I will, when I come downtown, I want to park there. It is important that the project improves the environmental quality. As you know, actually all of the parcels that make up the property, 7 parcels, are all contaminated. Most of the contamination is associated with the former American dry cleaners, and also in a minute. So by doing this project, we're enhancing environmental quality in the area. The native and Manistee history venue will be interactive. We're looking at that as a way of creating a destination where we can bring people in to highlight both the native history and Manistee's history. And finally, this has always been an opportunity to do some public infrastructure, streetscape, and then riverwalk, at least in the vicinity of the project, the first 2 blocks. The financial impacts are substantial. We have been able to estimate that by the creation of the jobs, bringing 120 or so, 110 to 130 jobs in the downtown, both to operate the condo hotel, the businesses, and also by bringing in and centralizing the operations of Little River Holdings. That then, along with the full-time and part-time residents that will bring to the downtown, as well as the visitors, which are estimated at about 32,000 to 33,000 a year, we have estimated the actual direct economic benefit to the area, to the downtown and the surrounding area, to about 19 million a year. That is essentially new economic activity. And that does not even take into account, rents for the tenants. So it is substantial. Now, there are of course going to be a lot of secondary financial benefits to the downtown and the city in the form of increased property values in the surrounding and the nearby properties. Developments like this always have a domino effect where new developments will happen, and then of course there will be more retail activity. We have not been able to put dollars in these secondary benefits, not yet, but they will be substantial. It is a big project. This is one of the biggest projects in the area, and there's some substantial costs currently at about 90 million plus. So, people have been asking, well, why we have not started on it, when we're going to start, what are we waiting for? Well, this is the number that is the issue. And until someone, writes a check for that amount and the check clears the bank, then we have to take the time that it's needed to deal with the financial institutions. This project is totally funded through private bank financing through Little River Holdings. It is not supported financially by the tribe. Now, in acquiring the land, which is the 7 parcels. As you know, the DDA contributed the first parcel, the former dry cleaners, and then the Little River Holding, the tribe assisted with acquiring some of the other parcels, and then Little River Holdings acquired the last couple. That in itself, the value of, I have to look at my numbers for sure. So the land portion of the project is about 2.4 million. We have been working on planning this project with the architects, our engineers. Spicer has been part of this, as well as environmental consultants, geotechnical consultants. We had to do some additional environmental work and some additional geotechnical work due to the location of the buildings. We have to have some deep foundations. That's something that was not anticipated 2-3 years ago when they were planning to have the chain hotel in the surface parking lot. So we have expended about almost $1 million for so far for all of this pre-development work. The future, the ongoing and future architectural engineering fees are $3.3 million, and then we get to the construction. The first phase is about 30 million, 29.8 million just for construction. The second phase, the condo hotel, is 46.7 million. Before we even start with construction, we're going to have to we have to address the environmental issues. We have contaminated soils that have to be removed and taken to a landfill. And then primarily because of the contamination at the former dry cleaners, we have organic vapors that therefore we have to put vapor mitigation barriers under and around all of the buildings to prevent organic vapors from coming into the buildings. So the environmental work is about 4.5 million. Then we're doing public infrastructure around in the first block of River Street, the first block south on Division. We're working with the city on that, and we're looking at 2.3 million. We have startup operations for the first year. So currently the cost is up at the total development cost at 90 million. And therefore the brownfield redevelopment program is absolutely necessary in order to make this project proceed. Without it, we cannot do the project. And that's something that was clear right from the beginning. We have the brownfield redevelopment activities and costs that can be reimbursed to the city and to Little River Holdings through brownfield TIF are defined by Act 381, the Brownfield Act. And in our case, we have these eligible activities are environmental remediation and environmental due care, public infrastructure, the streetscape, riverwalk, crossings between the two buildings. Site preparation there will be substantial regrading moving of soils, as well as putting in deep foundations. Some locations, and actually most locations, they will be going down with foundations 70 feet deep. Those are reimbursable through the program. The demolition and abatement, part of this was already paid through a grant and loan that the city has received from Eagle. Still, there were certain costs, quite a few costs that were not covered. Then under public infrastructure, the parking is an eligible expense, and so is stormwater management that is necessary for the project. And of course, the act allows for financing or having the part of the financing being reimbursable. At this point, Ed and I have been working on that, and Ed will talk about it a little later, but bottom line is currently, without any additional city public infrastructure, we're about 2.3 million. And then for the private developer, we're about 20 million. And that does not include financing. And also does not include any capture of future TIF for the Brownfield Authority's site remediation revolving fund. So reimbursement of eligible costs can continue for up to 30 years. And however, we don't expect that most likely we're going to need to go that long. We have looked at work with the city, with the assessor and Ed and his group on looking at current taxable values for the project. And Ed, you want to talk about this, or you want me to continue?
You're on a roll, keep going.
Okay. Currently, oops, there is something missing here. The current taxable value of the 7 properties are about $640,000. Currently, the DDA is capturing approximately $14,500. At the time the project is completed, which will be for the essentially will be 5 years from the start of the project, because the 2 projects are going to overlap for a period of time. We're starting with the south side, and then within a year, we're starting the north, the condo hotel construction. So by the time that construction is going to be 2.5 years per complex, per site. So we're going to be looking at reaching full taxable value that the city assessor has estimated in about 5 years at a bit over 24 million. So this is a substantial, increase in the taxable value, and with associated increase in taxes. So currently the local tax is about 14,500. The future tax amount of tax, annual tax at completion will be about $750,000 for the local and $560,000 for the state tax, which, by the way, those are the school tax, which is reimbursed to the schools from the state. Okay? So the importance of doing this project with Brownfield is that the Brownfield Authority can capture both local and school taxes. And then the school taxes get reimbursed to the community through the state. whereas the DDA can only capture the local. So that's why it is always advantageous to capture all of the taxes and go through the Brownfield Authority. So our current estimates, again, as Ed said earlier, we do the TIF tables that go out 30 years. Well, there are a lot of things that can happen over the 30 years, but in doing future TIF capture calculations, we make some assumptions. So first we take the difference between the current taxable value and the future taxable value that the assessor is trying to come up with without the project being completed. So she has to estimate to the best of her ability. She and I have gone over that. I worked with her over the years, and I feel comfortable with her estimate of future taxable value. So we take that difference, and that difference in taxable value and the taxes resulting from that is what can be captured. That's what the TIF is. So we make the assumption also that taxable values would increase for 1.5% a year for the next 30 years. Well, we don't know if that's exactly what's going to happen. For example, last year, they increased by 5%. This year, I was just told a couple of days ago that they expect throughout the state, our taxable values are going to increase by 3%. So over the years, we're being conservative when we estimate 1.5% of increase in taxable value. Will it go higher? Will it go lower? Well, history tells us that they're going to be higher. Certainly for the last 10, 15 years, they've been going up, except for 2 years that stay stable. So based on that, then we estimate what the capture would be for, say, 20 years, which is the approximate time that initially we thought that will take for reimbursement of eligible costs. So that will be 26 million for all of the tax, 15 million being the local tax capture. Now, there were some discussions about the difference in the taxable value of the property before and after demolition. So before the buildings were demolished, the taxable value was about $970,000. At the time, the DDA was capturing $25,500 a year. Currently, the taxable value is at $640,000, and the DDA is capturing $14,500. So there is about a $10,000, $11,000 in capture difference between pre-demolition and post-demolition currently. That translates to about 1.4% of the TIF amount at completion of the project when we start paying full taxes. And now, I understand, of course, that without anything else happening, this amount will continue. This is the baseline. This becomes the baseline tax and taxable value. So the DDA will continue receiving that amount until the capture for the brownfield TIF ends, and then of course it will go up. Oh, I said that here. So, and currently we estimate that at the end of the capture, the brownfield TIF, the local TIF will be up at about $950,000. What did I not say? I forget.
So I think both the city and the Brownfield Authority are committed to basically making the DDA whole on the amount of value, about approximately $11,000 a year that they've lost. And there's a couple of different mechanisms to do that. Some are more complicated than others, but we don't want to run into any complications with the state. The state, in order to capture state taxes, has what they call a proportionality test. So if I'm capturing 100% of DDA taxes or local taxes, I can capture 100% of state taxes. But if I reduce that, they don't look at the dollar values because the millage rates aren't the same. They look at that percentage. So we don't want to lose any of the state capture. So we kind of went down that path about maybe we could do a little bit less than 100% and be able to reimburse the DDA. But I think a better approach will be an agreement between the City of Little River Holdings and the DDA to basically reimburse that lost value between when the properties had structures on them and when they were demoed, and do that separately apart from the brownfield thing, which we're committed to doing because we think that's the right thing to do. But that keeps the DDA whole from when there were structures on the property.
There are some examples of similar arrangements between developers, municipalities, and DDAs elsewhere. So we have a sample of a similar agreement, and we're going to be working on that, drafting it for the DDA's consideration.
And
I just don't have that yet.
there was also a copy of a previous resolution that the DDA had passed for the 141 Washington Street project. There'll be a similar resolution drafted for this project that, basically before the brownfield plan gets approved by the Brownfield Authority and then City Council, we'll need to have that resolution approved. So whether that happens at your next meeting or, potentially a special meeting or maybe the first meeting in March, ideally next meeting would be fine, and that's part of the reason we're having this conversation. But the resolution will be substantially in the same format as the one that you previously approved and have seen and was in the packet. We just don't have that drafted yet, so I gave you an example.
Does that reimbursement go back the number of years to when the buildings were standing, or does it start sort of when the project started?
Kind of starts when the project
Okay.
starts. Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, there can be questions.
Yeah, this meeting's meant for, because as Ed said, this resolution will be before us in our regular scheduled February meeting. And so this is really an opportunity to kind of get all the questions out there because this is just a transformative project for the downtown area. But it's also, brownfield can be complex, and just having the opportunity to have Ed and T here who are kind of subject matter experts are
This is
great.
similar to what we did a number of years ago with the South Washington Brownfield project, when we did a brownfield plan for the North Channel and Edgewater and the surrounding areas. Again, the DDA at the time forgo the locative capture for the Brownfield Authority to capture both local and state. I think recently you did, I believe, the same for Hotel Northern, and I don't know if there were any other projects. So this is very standard process for brownfield projects throughout the state. Again, it's because of the benefit that we bring to the community by going through the brownfield TIF, where we can capture both the local and state tax. Otherwise, there are a few projects where brownfield authorities capture only the local TIF. But what that does is it extends, more than doubles the capture period, because if they cannot capture the state tax, then all of the reimbursement has to come out of the local TIF.
Could I, You presented a little while back. I was under the assumption it was gonna be a phase one, find new money, phase two, but it sounds like it's gonna be all done. Phase one and phase two will be completed in 5 years, is that what you're saying?
That's what we're looking at right now, yes. Yeah. Because we've been working on financing. And again, financing will be from at least 3 institutions, financial institutions. And currently, we've been focusing on the South Complex, because that needs to start first. And meanwhile, within about a year, then the North Complex will start once we have financing. That's a more expensive project, and
T, do you have an idea of when shovels are going into the ground and when we're going to see some construction work?
like I said, when the check clears the bank. Look, I do not follow social media, but I hear that that's the main question that people are asking, why we have not started already. Well, the answer is right here. This is a very large project, and one, it takes a long time to plan it. I mean, as you know, Spicer will tell you, we have a lot of challenges, physical challenges on site that we have to address. And so when the project initially started 4 years ago, 3 years ago, it was going to be a 4-story chain hotel and a parking lot. They didn't have all of the issues and considerations that we have to deal with now. The deep foundations, the environmental costs. I mean, the environmental studies were done about a year ago. And in the process of doing that, the environmental remediation costs have tripled, just as a result of doing the studies. So in this complex and expensive project, you cannot move as you would with a smaller project where you're just planning, get the financing and start construction. There is a lot of parts that have to get, that have to, happen. And therefore, until someone comes with a large check for the whole project, we're going to have to work through a process where we deal with the banks. The banks are asking, how much TIF are you going to get? They're asking how much funding from the state, from MEDC, you're going to bring to the project. Well, to proceed with the brownfield program, we need to know what the actual costs are going to be. For MEDC, MEDC wants to know, do we have financing in place? And the financial institutions are asking, do you have MEDC funding in place?
So what step are we, so I understand we're obviously in a process. Are we close to the finish line, or are we in the middle, or are we still on step one? As far as shovels
We're not on
going.
step one.
I get that.
We're beyond step one.
But I'm with Sammy. I keep hearing all the time, when shovels go on the ground, I get the process.
Yeah.
So are we thinking this process is gonna be another 2 years, or do you think this process, we're gonna finish this thing here before the summer? So where do you feel like we're at in the process?
Based on what we hear from the banks, everything else is in place. The planning is complete. The final architectural engineering plans will start as soon as the bank, one of the banks, provides the letter of interest in financing, which is coming out. That's 3 months. So we're looking at later this year to start with construction on the south side. We're also working with Eagle, the state, on approval of the vapor mitigation system that has to be placed under the buildings and around the buildings. With that approval, that process has been going on for several months and will go for another couple of months. But those are the last things that, last items we have to have.
Thank you.
Any other questions for T? Ed, any questions for Ed? Do you have anything to add, Ed?
No, I mean, we've worked together on putting this together and make sure all the numbers and stuff are right. But, I mean, keep in mind too, the Brownfield Authority only received the application a couple of weeks ago. So we're moving as stepwise as we can, but we can only move forward too, and we have the information. And right now, the city and Little River Holdings are going back and forth to make sure we've got everything and we're all in agreement on the numbers, and then we fill out the Brownfield plan and the TIF tables and all of that so that everything meshes and works. So that's a process that we're working on, but you know, we're just getting started really, even though we've been talking about it for 3 years. So like T said, there is a process, there's a lot of moving pieces, it's complex. Just because we adopt a brownfield plan and it makes it through the BRA and the DDA with their resolution in the city doesn't mean that we'll necessarily implement that, because if something blows up, which we're not anticipating, but if it does, that brownfield plan just sits dormant. So this is a necessary kind of first step in any of these big projects, is you get the brownfield plan in place. Then that's one of the but-for things that's in place. So then the banks and the MED say, okay, you've got that in place. Now we can, you know, help make our decisions. So,
And in order to submit to the Brownfield Authority the application for the TIF, we have to have all of the costs in place. Well, it was in December, mid-December, that we received the estimated cost for the public infrastructure and the streetscape. So once we had that, that was the last piece that we were missing. And so we have what we believe is a complete picture of the costs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, T.
So the ask today is that
There's no
ask.
There's no ask. This was sheerly educational, so then we can have make a better informed decision come our regular scheduled meeting in February.
Okay.
So, but the ask is gonna be, we keep the 11,500 for 30 years, and then once it's complete, then we collect. By my estimates,
960 million.
by my estimates, that's a 14.5% return on your money. If I could get that for a client, I'd be high-fiving.
Wait, who are you working for?
Yeah. So,
I thought that would be salient to you.
I was running the numbers over here.
Hopefully it's 15 years.
Yeah. That was very good, very good.
Okay, are we good to move on? Yep. Okay. Move on to public comment. Do you have anything to say?
can I just make a comment?
Please.
So as you're all aware, the medical care facility led a bond. It was a voted bond, public voted for it maybe 3 years ago. And because of construction delays and cost increases, they didn't actually get going, but they finally started that project, and this is the first year that millage rate has been on the tax bills. So it's about 1.5 mils on the winter tax bill. By statute, the DDA is allowed to capture that, and I don't have any ability to waive that. So I've started to capture that tax. But I got a call from the medical care facility administrator asking if we being the DDA, and the city would be willing to forego that capture. Apparently, Filer Township has done that, their DDA. But they're probably gonna be coming to Andrew with a request to do that. So I just wanted to let you folks know that that's coming. The DDA doesn't have to do it, that's an optional thing, but they're gonna be requesting that. And I provided Bill with the approximate amount of revenue that you'd be foregoing on that if you gave up that capture. So he has that information, but I just wanted you to know that that's probably.
That's another meeting that we can. have
But
more
the
discussion at the
BRA
next meeting.
cannot capture.
Yeah, the BRA can't capture that
Right.
anyway,
Because
so,
it's dead.
right.
Okay.
But it's just something that they sometimes will request DDAs or TIFAs to give out.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
Did you have anything, Liz?
I'm just gonna say thank you for approving that RAP grant, that's huge, and allocating the money. And then the second comment I've heard, and are those 47 rental units and the 8 condos, are those short-term or long-term rentals? And will there be any deed restrictions once you decide what?
The PUD specified that the 8 condos would not be short-term rentals. So we're looking at year-round.
And that'll be like in a deed restriction or something?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The apartments, there is no any restriction. However, we're looking at using them for, let me go back. When we restarted this project 2 years ago, the first thing we did is we met with all of the major employers in the area, manufacturers, hospital and so on, and to see what the housing needs were for their professional employees, the ones that primarily new employees. And all of them had problem with their ability to bring in new people due to housing shortages. So we based the planning for the rental units on that study. They identify a need for about 55 plus minus apartments. And we have set up 47 based on space limitations. So those would be market rate apartments.
But they could be used for either short or long term.
Yes, however, that's not, we're looking at doing year-long leases.
And then another question that came up was, is there any plan, because since we don't know exactly and don't have control over when the project will start, any plan to improve just a little bit of improvement, as that is kind of the gateway?
Yep. So, over a year and a half ago, in discussions with the city, actually with some DDA people, when they demolished the buildings, they left soils, the native soils that were contaminated. And therefore, as part of Little River Holdings environmental due care obligations, we have to limit access to that property, both sides. That's why the fence was there for a long time. After some discussions with the city, with others, we went ahead and replaced the top layer of the remaining contaminated soils with clean soil. And then we put grass and so on. And then because of that, then even though we want to limit access, because we don't want someone to go in and start digging, we then remove the fences and put, those wire kind of around, just in the no trespassing signs, just to keep people out. We have to do that as part of our due care obligations. Now, we left the fence panels along the south wall and the north wall, and we put the banners that they had before. However, those have been vandalized. This last few months, just before the cold weather we had a few weeks ago, they were vandalized every other day. People would actually go there and with bolt cutters, cut the connectors between the fence panels, and we get them repaired. And then 2 days later, same thing again. We put cameras there, we couldn't catch anybody. So eventually we took the banners off, and we're supposed to take those fence panels out right now. We keep all of the original fence panels in storage. And then in the spring, I don't think we're going to be ready with construction in early spring. It's going to be later in the summer. So we have several months that the property has to look decent. So the idea is, the plan at this point is to put the the fence panels back on in the back. And we had some discussions with the visitor or the tourism bureau about banners. You want to talk about?
That's our front door.
Right.
And we've got another summer coming up, so we want to make sure it's attractive and appealing and not just an empty site and, unsightly.
That's the question.
So we are committing to work with the tribe on making sure that happens.
Little River
That's a
Holdings.
concern.
Little River Holdings, I'm sorry.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a concern.
Thank you. Good question. Anyone else? Okay, thanks for being here. I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Or board member comments, I'm sorry. Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Deanna. Thanks again for being here.